on the looming government shutdown is Steve Pruitt. He's a former Democratic staff director at the Congressional Budget Committee. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
This is serious business. Is it likely that the government could shut down?
I have to go with yes. There are a couple missing ingredients right now. Number one, nobody's talking to anyone. They're involved essentially in lobbying pieces of legislation back and forth across the Hill. And until folks actually sit down and talk, you really can't take any of this effort about, or the discussion about closing seriously. It's going to close. It happens on Tuesday. It will more than likely run at least through next weekend, in my view. Potentially it could run longer than that. In 1995-96, the government was shuttered for 21 days in total. Things still happen. The critical services still go forward, but a lot of things drop through the cracks.
Right. This has happened before, but I guess the difference, as you just pointed out, was that people were talking and they managed to resolve it before it went to a shutdown. What would be the immediate impact of a shutdown?
Well, the immediate impact focuses more, if you will, on the domestic side of the equation. Things like Social Security checks could be held up. Certain government agencies, other than their absolute essential employees, would be shuttered. All the museums, libraries, tourist attractions throughout the country would be closed. And then as it starts to go out further, you get payments to state and local governments that get delayed after about 10 days. Because no one's there to process them.
And of course, the other thing is that you would have federal government workers, civil servants here in Washington, and of course around the country, who won't be going to work.
Roughly, I think about 800,000 who would not be going to work starting Tuesday morning. Again, that has an impact.
And they won't be paid either.
Well, the last time the government closed, Congress, when they finally resolved the dispute, enacted in the legislative fix back pay for those employees. I suspect there's a good chance that will occur again because it's really unfair to the employees to put them in what is essentially the middle of a political struggle.
Right, and as our reporter pointed out in his report, there's a bit of a blame game going on at the moment in Congress and the White House, of course. Who's to blame for this current situation?
Well, as a Democrat, it would be easy for me to say to Republicans because they're putting issues on the table for resolution, policy issues on the table that don't have anything to do necessarily with the appropriations bills themselves or, as we'll see later in the month, with the debt ceiling, paying the bills that have already been made. So you could arguably say they're at fault. But again, as I noted, nobody's talking. I mean, in the past, and even up to last year when we were at this same point in time, there were discussions going on in earnest between the House, the Senate, and the White House in an attempt to come to a resolution. This time, because the House of Representatives, which is controlled by the Republicans, essentially is playing wild card. I mean, they've gone up and down their list of, if you will, unsuccessful legislative initiatives and dumped those on the table in an effort.
It's ideology, isn't it?
To cut their deal around achieving legislative victories versus resolving either the budget or the spending level questions or taxation or entitlement issues, which are really what's driving both the deficit and the need for debt.
Okay, Steve, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Steve Pruitt.